Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the PDP stalwart and former Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Dr. Ladan Salihu. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me, Charles.
You're smiling. I thought you'd be weeping.
No, certainly I wouldn't weep.
So your reaction to this verdict, you must be at the very least disappointed.
Well, let me say from the onset that I am deeply shocked and saddened by the outcome. As explained, by the PDP National Publicity Secretary in his press release, where he said, clearly that it is a sad commentary on our own democratic culture and on our own, history as a nation that is trying to up the ante in both politics and political socialization. It does appear that we take one step forward and several steps backward. I am very, very shocked and saddened because it would appear to me, and let me set the record straight from the onset, I have high regards for the judiciary, the Supreme Court, the apex court in the land. I want to say that there was a judgment, but we don't necessarily agree with the integrity of the judgment. There's nothing we can do about the judgment. It has been passed. And we must, as Democrats, as people who believe in the supremacy of the law, as people who are given to civil order and quality disposition to debates and discussions as way out, we bow down to the majesty of the judicial process. Literally, I would say that our hands are tied, but I want to assure you that our mouths will not be quiet in the face of what we see clearly as a miscarriage of justice. But then, like, the Hausas would say, quoting Allah ya Isa, which means it is the infinite thing you can get. It is the final outcome that you must swallow. And there's nothing you can do, you just leave it to God.
The court, of course, refused the PDP's attempt to enter new evidence, saying it was not submitted at the tribunal and therefore has no place in the Supreme Court. So in spite of all the PDP's and Atiku Abubakar's efforts in Chicago, President Tinubu had the last laugh, as one Nigerian newspaper put it.
It is quite intriguing. It is quite not only disappointing, but it puts Nigeria on a very, very worrying map of global shame. Look, the Supreme Court, by this judgment, by this aspect of the judgment you just talked about, is literally relegating the Nigerian constitution to the background, or is putting a kind of it's taking the electoral law to supersede the constitution, the Electoral Act. And the Constitution of Nigeria 1999 is very explicit, is very clear, it is unambiguous. It states that forgery, any person who commits forgery is not entitled to run for a political office. And nobody, I'm not even bothered about whether or not President Tinubu attended, a university. He can have 1,000 degrees. But take it to the irreducible minimum. The requirement of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 states clearly that forgery is not to be tolerated. It's a crime. I'm just trying to perceive and to contain the anger from within. The Nigerian constitution is very explicit on the issue of forgery. Once you forge a document and you submit it to INEC, you automatically should have been disqualified. And let me tell you, the appeal court, some days or weeks ago, actually quashed the election of a PDP member of a House of Representatives from, I think, Adamawa State, because he was found to have forged his certificate.
Well, to be entirely...
let me quickly finish.
Sure.
Look, in 1999, when President Obasanjo came on board as the president, you remember the case of Imam Buhari, Salihu Buhari rather, the Speaker of the of the House of Representatives. He was discovered to have forged his certificate. What he did was to dignifiedly step aside, and the country moved on. What I am worried is not so much because Atiku is not the president today. No, I'm worried for Nigeria that has set a precedence that your child and my child probably in the next 10, 15 years, he cannot aspire to any political office, or if he does so, heavens forbid, he can go to Owode and get a certificate that is forged, and it will end up in the same kind of quagmire that we have found ourselves today.
Well, I'm glad you used the word quagmire, because that situation, and I'm not a spokesperson for anybody, it appears to be very murky and unclear.
Yes.
Because part of the problem is not so much the issue of whether a certificate is forged. The issue really is
the timeline.
Is the processes.
Yes,
I mean, the court has its processes, and it's bound by those processes. And if you had submitted that as part of your body of evidence in the tribunal, we wouldn't be having this discussion, well, and maybe the Supreme Court might. Yes, I don't know. I mean, but what I'm saying is that there are rules and regulations that guide the way the Supreme Court operates. Otherwise, it'll just be a free for all.
Of course, yes. But then there are rules and regulations also that are. You have also the spirit and the letters of the law. You have a situation in which Nigerians are the impartial arbiters in this case. And what did we have? The timeline for the party or the candidate to secure the relevant documents that will make his case reasonably, poignant sort of. The timeline was such that it was out of his control. But then it was submitted to the court, and the whole world is aware of what happened.
But to be fair, you could have started the process. I mean, if you're building a case and you have legal knowledge, if you're building a case, I mean, you've got to look at your case and look at all the parameters. I mean, that's what your lawyers are there to do. And you could have started in time. I mean, it's actually more painful to those who potentially support your party that simply because you didn't start in time. I mean, it sounds almost lackadaisical that you didn't start in time to get the process done. You missed the chance for the Supreme Court to make a very important decision.
No, I think there are a lot of issues involved in this, Charles. First of all, the simplistic nature of our legal system, the laws, the way they are couched, the way they are kind of written, they tend to give you not only the impression, but the kind of definition of a clear, a clear judgment that will come once you are able to submit even the basic requirements. And nobody wanted, I mean, we didn't want to be in this position, discussing the credentials, the qualities of any opponent. We expected that we will have a clean election, devoid of fraud, of rigging, and of malpractices that will be reminiscent of what we saw with President Goodluck Jonathan at the closure of the election, count. He picked his phone and called his opponent to say congratulations. We didn't want to have an aspect of our political life in which we will be so embroiled in litigation upon litigation, because clearly the points are there for everybody to see. But then here we are. The Nigerian legal system, sometimes I made an example someday, I don't know whether it's on this platform, and this is what I said. Our laws are such that the judges or those in charge of the process can come out with plausible, convincing, and very seemingly reliable argument any which way the judgment is given. It is like you have somebody with 2 pigeons locked in his arms, and I say, Charles, take, choose one is live. If you happen to choose the one that is live, that is not live, I'll give you a dead pigeon. I'll say you've lost. If you choose the one that is alive, I will squeeze it and kill it, and then give you a dead pigeon anyway.
Well, I don't mean to laugh at the fact that you're squeezing an innocent pigeon to death.
So this is the
way, just the way you said
this is the way I see the judiciary operating.
Anyway, the APC says the verdict means that the will of the Nigerian people has now been affirmed and confirmed. But you disagree.
No, I disagree totally. The will of the Nigerian people cannot be quantified in a percentage of 37%. 37% of the total votes cast. APC, 63%. PDP and Labour put together. So if you are taking it on a political equilibrium in terms of the scores,
the opposition certainly beat the
ruling party.
But,
so as it is now, you have a party that is in power, that is actually operating from not only a minority sentiment, but a minority point of view, a minority disposition, and a minority attitude, and a minority government in charge. So it cannot be the will of the Nigerian people.
So given the fact that that is an ineluctable situation, there's nothing you can do about it now.
Absolutely.
What we need to be talking about is reforms going forward. And in terms of the reforms you would like to see, what might those be? There'd been some concern, for instance, that petitions are not concluded before the swearing in.
Yeah, I think the way we are going, if we don't rejig, if we don't reset or reformat the electoral laws in Nigeria, we will just be oscillating.
Yeah, but how would you like them to be reformed?
I'd like to see a situation in which more recourse is given to the Nigerian Constitution in both application and interpretation of the law with respect to the electoral process. Reduce the literature on the electoral laws, because it does appear to me from this experience as if the electoral law or the act establishing the National Electoral Commission and the extant laws that the Commission is operating with, they tend to give a kind of leeway for smart guys in the system to exploit, and they will wait only for elections to be concluded, and they pop up and exploit those loopholes.
Right.
And to me, the rejigging of the system has to be holistic, completely holistic, starting with what I just said, a while ago. You cannot have a situation in which 63% of the
Yeah,
population.
so you would like
a situation where the constitution is kind of amended to give the president to
he
have
must get about
least-
50%.
At least 50.
Right. Okay. Or maybe 51%.
51%.
Right.
And then you can. The second thing is to ensure that the the Independent National Electoral Commission does not operate like a hawk. It must be subjected to queries, questions, and it must give answers. It is not a situation where you come on the final day of the elections and then you change the rules midway. If we are to jettison completely the beavers.
Beavers, right.
If we are to jettison beavers and IREV, let's go analog. And then we count it painstakingly and get to the finish line. But if we must deploy technology, then we must be bounded by the rules of technology.
I mean, what's the point of deploying technology if you won't use it and spending all the money on it?
And we spent over 360 billion.
So in that context, do you think the chairman of INEC should be forced to resign now, for instance, for whatever mistakes were made, and let there be a clean slate?
I think in a more organized, more civil, and more proactive society. In England, by about now, the INEC chairman should have long.
Well, it wouldn't arise in the UK.
It wouldn't arise
that
in the
situation
UK.
Just wouldn't arise.
We
It's as
have
simple as that.
a situation in which, before a global television audience, Nigeria was put to shame. How? Before the world journalists, he told the entire world that, oh, we're going to deploy technology. We're going to ensure that it's going to be transparent. We will ensure that the beavers and the IREV will work. And then if there is cataclysm at the end of the tunnel, he should take the humble pie and say, I have failed.
I think a lot of people would agree with you. And he may well still do that, because the elections are not entirely over. We've got
Charles,
off-season elections coming up.
I feel terrible in the inside because the INEC chairman, we grew up together.
Right, so you know him personally.
I know him personally, and it
and you're
pains me
disappointed
that that my brother, with whom we grew up together, cannot deliver. Maybe he had his own shortcomings and his own constraints and his own limitations. I don't know. I have not spoken to him, but I am disappointed because I want to believe that I saw a situation in which he could have done better.
Right. Well, you're not alone. But let me move away from that, because we've got a few minutes left for the chat. What about getting away from INEC and all the rest of it and the courts? What about the political culture that prevails in the parties that allows the kind of brazen attempts to rig elections? What might be the way around that?
What I have seen in my 2 or 3 years, experience in politics, is that there is the Nigerian factor that applies. You have a lot of godfathers and godsons. You have rules and constitutions of the parties that are not necessarily being scrupulously followed. You have people who will...
Yeah, but some would say, who are you to, if you can't get your house in order, the political parties, which are the vessels via which, people contest elections and move on to office. I mean, these are the people who are going to take over office. I mean, if you can't get your house in order, why would you expect anyone else? You're talking about the Nigerian factor. It's pervasive, isn't it?
It's pervasive. And then also the issue of money, Charles. It is very difficult for a newcomer, anybody that, however popular you might be, to get in and break through.
Yeah, but how do you fix that?
You
That's the
fix
point
that
I'm
by
making.
ensuring that, first of all, the political parties need to sit down and do a SWOT analysis.
Right. So maybe we could start with the PDP.
With the PDP, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you're a leading member of the PDP.
There has to be some fundamental changes.
Yeah. Before, I mean, maybe you guys should start looking, because, I mean, you, as I said, you're a PDP member, though it could be said that you're not a part of the Politburo of the PDP.
I'm not.
But after all the divisions and the internecine fighting, I mean, that we saw there in public, I mean, within the party, some might say actually cost you the election. Because, I mean, there were divisions. I mean, Peter Obi was part of your party, he broke away. Other people were part of your party, they broke away. Are you personally still very much in sync with the party, or are you out of kilter with it?
No, I am totally in sync with the party. I think every party has its own, highs and lows, has its own, trouble and troubling periods. What I think we need to do as a party is to sit down and look at where certain things have gone wrong. And if there are people within the party that, like you said, that have constituted a cog in the wheel of progress and have cost us this election, and if and when they are identified, sanctions should apply. This is a serious business in which people have invested their time, money, effort, and everything. And then at the end of the day, you discover that by just acts of a few people and their shenanigans have cost us dearly. But they have not only cost us, they've cost Nigerians. Because right now...
Yeah, but they would argue that, that they did what they did because the powers that be in the party didn't follow the rules.
No, not at all. I think there was there was a problem.
Very briefly,
some people wanted to be Nigeria's president at all costs. When they lost, they thought it is always better to throw away the water, the wash hand basin, and the baby. And that was what happened.
The house as well.
And the house, and that was what happened.
Drown them all.
There was no way PDP would have lost this election if we hadn't attrition from within.
Yeah.
And
that's what
like I said,
internecine fighting.
I mean,
you killed yourselves.
Absolutely. So it is now left for the leadership of the party and all those that are in the top echelons of leadership to look at some of these constraints and limitations and see where we go from here.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to believe that the future is bright, and I want to congratulate our own presidential candidate for Atiku Abubakar for showing Nigerians, bringing the inadequacies, not only the inadequacies, not only the constraints, but the clear and present danger of the corrupt practices in the system.
And I want to congratulate you for putting a brave face on things and coming here to robustly defend your party's position. Dr. Ladan Salihu is a PDP stalwart and former Director General of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.